It's 6 o'clock. It's Tuesday, September 13th, and this is the Board of Public Works City of Franklin meeting. We're going to do a quick roll call. Alderman Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Woznicki.
Here.
Commissioner Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Specht.
Here.
Assistant City Engineer Beinlich.
Here.
And Highway Superintendent Schleider.
Here.
And myself, Commissioner Webster. We're here.
Excuse me, sir. Something happened. Everything just like.
Is the light on?
I don't know what happened. It keeps crashing. I hear something fading. Okay, so you're recording. Try it. Recording. Try it. Okay.
Okay, we'll try it again. I'll restart this. It's 6:02. We'll restart the Franklin Board of Public Works meeting on Tuesday, September 13th at 6:02. We'll restart because the recording had a little issue. So we'll do a roll call too. We'll restart because the recording had a little issue. So we'll do a roll call again. We'll go Alderman Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Woznicki.
Here.
Commissioner Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Specht.
Here.
Commissioner Witt.
Here.
City Engineer Morrow.
Here.
Assistant City Engineer Beinlich.
Here.
And Highway Superintendent Chairman Webster. We're all here. We'll do a quick pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Okay, we're going to do, we're going to start with the reading and approval of the minutes from the July 12th, 2022 meeting. Anybody care to make a motion on that? Motion on that.
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Okay. Motion from Commissioner Witt, seconded by Commissioner Porter to approve as presented. Any questions or comments from anybody on the board on those? I do not have any myself. Anybody on the board on those? I do not have any myself. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Not hearing any negatives, that motion will pass. Okay, so then we're going to move on to the public comment period. I will allow you to speak during the, since it's on the agenda. Okay, it's 6:05, and we'll declare the public comment period over. Okay, we're going to, this first item won't take long, so we're going to go through it in order tonight because this is an update on the purchase of 2 plows. This is item 4A, 2 plow truck chassis with dump boxes, hydraulics, and plows. There's a note in our, excuse me. There's a note that this is kind of coming back to us as a, it's already been pushed through the, kind of coming back to us as a, it's already been pushed through the council, so it's coming back to us just to information. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we had one in the budget, and we weren't having any luck. As everybody knows, we probably 2 years ago, we switched over to Max, but 2 years ago, we switched over to Max, but they made it very clear we won't see a Mac until 2025 at the earliest. So I shopped around and was able to find 2 internationals, but it's the last 2 until, again, 2025, so.
Okay.
If we get another one in the budget, so.
Okay.
If we get another one in the budget next year, I'll shop around, but it's really looking like we might not see nothing for a couple of years. So we needed to get an answer because it was first come, first served, so I took it to council right away.
Yeah, and that's not a problem to us. Alderman Nelson?
Push button.
Superintendent Schleter, this is just in general conversation. As far as your equipment, what you have right now are you going into winter? Are we prepared? Do we have enough? Are we there? Or are we still lagging in? I know I always hear a lot of that. We're behind, not just us.
Last winter we went through with so many breakdowns. There was at times I didn't even have enough trucks to put on the road for the drivers. Luckily, we had a very mild winter, so we were able to make up for it with other 1-tons and that. But I would like to have more spares just because of that. But the 2 trucks that we're going to be getting rid of, I just can't keep any longer because they have be moving up our buying time frames. But I totally understand we're in a budget situation that, you just can only afford so much. And we will make do. And unfortunately, the repairs to the trucks that are older are getting much, much more expensive and harder to, and harder to fix just because this supply chain issue. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hit the
Which one?
You're good now.
Stop.
That-
You just turned it off.
You're good now.
Stop.
That-
You just turned it off.
You just turned
There
it
you
on.
go.
Hit it again. Okay. You're good.
Okay.
One more time.
One more time.
No one touch.
Leave it alone.
Just give it a second. Oh, come on.
Oh,
There you go.
okay, I'm there. Is it live or is it Memorex? Did International get on top of their engine? They were just basically blowing up on us like crazy. What was going on with those trucks?
That was the Max Force engine. That was kind of like their own brand of engine.
Yeah,
The 2 we ordered, or actually have coming, are Cummins diesel, engines.
oh, okay.
So we feel a little bit better about that. I still, in the future, would go back to the Mac. I just don't like the way International treated everybody
Right,
with all these engine issues. They kind of, you're out on your own. We had the first one that went down. We fought and fought and fought, and we got a little bit of a discount on it. But after that, we're totally on our own. And we've got 4 more that totally on our own. And we've got 4 more that are probably going to have that issue also, that they're not going to help us out at all on.
yeah, because it could be very costly to repair them, keeping them going forward.
Oh, if the next one goes down, we could be looking at 35,000, 40,000 easy.
Wow,
Easy. We could be looking at 35,000, 40,000 easy.
wow.
Easy.
Okay, well, thank you. I was just a question,
Yeah.
Thanks.
In the fleet, geez, it's been 10 years since we've gone over to the max, or 10 years since we've gone over to the max, or 8 years or 9 years. It's been quite a while. How many internationals do we have yet? As you just said, we have 4 that still may have this problem of the engines. How many internationals do we have in the fleet in total? How many internationals do we have in the fleet in total?
I would say we have, I would think we have probably 9 total. We have 3 Max and the rest are Freightliners. We have a couple old Sterling, but probably 9 total.
9
But
total.
not all of them have that engine.
Right.
There's only a
That's why I
certain
said, you said
time
4, and I caught that.
Yeah. We
And
had
how
6,
many-
Now we're down to 4 yet.
Okay, and how many total trucks are in our fleet now at this point in time?
We have 16 main trucks that go out as main plow route trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're looking at 1 or 2, probably 2. And then we have 2 spray trucks that go out pre-wetting the roads.
Right.
And they're old. We don't put plows on those. They're
Right.
just basically
Just this.
holdovers from when we
right.
bought a new one.
Any other questions from the board? Other questions from the board? Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Schleider. We'll move on to item 4A, which is the traffic and drainage problems regarding 6413, 6425, 116th Street. We did 116th Street. We did have some information in our board, or in our packet, on traffic, traffic reports. half of this in terms of the traffic side of this. Do you have information, or how do you
Sure.
want to start with this?
Let me start with the introduction, then gentlemen can add to or detract from what I say, I guess. So there's two issues. One was the drainage issue that was discussed, and the easy one, I think, is the drainage issue. So when you go out there and look at it, it just seems like it ought to drain. So we'd like to go ahead and do some scraping on the yard to the north to see if we can get it out there. Just haven't got to it. It's on the list of other things we can't get to, but we're going to try to get to that when we can and scrape that out and see if that fixes the drainage issue.
So just in normal maintenance of the road project, okay.
Yep. So the other one that we spent some time and effort to look at was the speeding issue. Did you by chance get a copy of the packet? Did she send it to you? Okay. So long story short, after this gentleman was here last time, I went and talked to Hales Corners. I noticed that 116th Street, and I have a map showing Franklin and Hales Corners, they have one of those signs that he discussed last time about, your speed is, and has a flashing sign. So I talked to them quite a bit about why they installed it, when they installed it, and so forth. So they actually provided some data, some speed data of having speed data before the sign. They only had speed data that the sign collected. So in addition, I asked our police department to run a speed study in front of this gentleman's house and compare the two to see how, if it's comparable. The odd thing is that when you look at it, I have a summary there. So the fastest speed.
May I interrupt a second?
Sure.
Can we go back to the ditch thing?
Sure.
Okay. Here's some pictures from September 1st. I know I supplied it back to you again with the algae problem. If you want to take a look at that, show it to the commission members, please. If you want to take a look at that, show it to the commission members, please. I mean, when it gets to be 75, 80 degrees, I got to go out twice a week to scrape the algae out. Okay? It's ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure the board received a copy of the complaint I filed with the health department because I contacted the state. Algae is a health issue. Okay? It's a hazard. I mean, there's mosquitoes, mice, you name it. Everything is in that ditch. Frogs, believe it or not. So something's got to be done with the drainage on 116th Street. And it's mainly like I brought up at the last north at 6413. Over the years, her culvert raised. That's the big issue. And if the water doesn't flow like it's supposed to, it's backing up on my side. Okay?
So
And if you take a look at the other side of her culvert, she doesn't make. Now here I took a picture of, believe it or not, I didn't have any colored paper. I ran out. Picture paper. That shows the amount of water from the rainstorm, okay, and how it backed up on my portion compared to hers. If you want a clearer picture, I brought my camera with me.
would like to allow the Department of Public Works to go in and do their maintenance on the ditches, and yes, see if they can get this to get the drainage functional, and hopefully that will also take care of this problem. But I would step, and it makes sense to go ahead and do that, and so let's allow that to be done, and we'll move and we'll revisit it if it needs to be revisited after that. Are you okay with that?
Yes, but the question I have, okay, I left messages for Kevin, I don't know what his last name is, okay? I left messages for Kevin, I don't know what his last name is, a couple of times for him to come and meet me. Never got any return phone calls. Is that how we are treated by the Department of Public Works? You know, and I was told, I think by Mr. Morrow, who's the one with the voice box?
Technician.
Who's the one with the voice box?
Technician. His name's Brad.
He was supposed to come out and meet with me. I never saw him. And I like him. I met him when they were doing the culvert across the street. There's nothing. How am I supposed to talk to anybody face to face When I don't know if they're there, they haven't been there, what? Face to face, when I don't know if they're there, they haven't been there, what? I don't know if Mr. Morrow said he was there, but, here, that should be
Well,
placed into the record.
it does sound like they have been, yeah, we can keep those and file those.
Okay.
It does sound like at least, it does sound like at least Mr. Morrow
We
was
have
there.
Bill.
I can't speak for Kevin because he
Mr.
didn't
Dillon's
speak
been
up. But you all went together, so they were there. And they think that they can handle that situation, you know, the drainage. And so let's let them do their job and ditch and hopefully get the drainage functioning properly. And then we'll revisit it depending on how that operates. Okay?
It's, you know, the last meeting was in July, so that was extended it past another 2 months of me cleaning out algae. All right, and it's grass part, and you keep raking. That stuff's heavy. And I'm telling you, the smell after when you get to like the 85-degree temperature, it's terrible. And it is definitely, if you talk to the health department here or the state, it's definitely a health hazard to anybody. So,
Back again tonight.
Mister,
Well,
okay.
you're in District 6, so we
Okay.
once in a while we clean up a little bit. But one of the things that, and I'm pretty familiar with this situation, and I've seen it, and I guess my question, I have two questions, and that's, number one is, you mentioned that your neighbor to the word has raised. So let's say our DPW goes in there and fixes, is this going to help with the flow?
Should.
I mean, okay, so that's my first question, but that's just to our city engineer. And the second thing is, would this be done, because the property to the north, you know, would you also be fixing that ditch as well, as far as digging things out to make it flow, not just on Mr. Swindrowski's side, or would it go to the north as well?
So my observation, at least, and again, I had Brad say that if we just clean the ditch line out, that it can go from culvert pipe to culvert pipe. There is some fall between the two culvert pipes. But granted, your neighbor has a lot of things going in her yard, but they are back in her yard. But out in the ditch line, for whatever reason, it's built up over time. So we're thinking if we just clean that out, that would allow it to get from culvert pipe to culvert pipe.
Well,
And then
here's
on
the
from
one thing I'll let you know.
Just a second, maybe before you go on. Oops, sorry, I forgot my mic. One question, Glenn. It was mentioned here that across to the street from him, that is there flow on, do we have to clean up both sides of the street, I guess is my question, on the ditches, or how's this work? I don't know how the flow is on both sides if it's a one ditches, or how's this work? I don't know how the flow is on both sides if it's a one-side problem or two-side problem.
I don't
I'm
recall a
asking.
discussion for the other side of the street. I do know we've had several issues. I mean, there are many yards that are just flat. I mean, it's just the way it was built. You know, you've heard me say it, welcome to Franklin. You know, you've heard me say it, welcome to Franklin, home of the wetlands. We just have a lot of wet spots all around town. I can tell you we definitely have a lot of spots, a lot worse in this situation, but we're trying to address the situation. So,
Well, I was still talking, when you're done, I have one more thing to add to that point.
so like I said, visually it looks like if we just clean out between the culvert pipes, we can get it to the next culvert pipe, and then from there, I think it can slide onto the north and down. But that's not the area he's talking about. I'm not following you. You want to explain?
You have that, Mr. Drosky, you have that black pipe in your ditch line?
For the sub pump, correct? And the water does flow.
Well, so if it were blocking up for his neighbor, obviously we'd be talking to Swindlowski. But if it's causing problems for his yard, that's his issue.
I graded that years ago under Jack Bennett, okay, when he redid the entire ditch on 116th Street. I put in that black hole ditch on 116th Street. I put in that black hose for mainly the sub pump, because the way sub pumps run in our area, like especially the last couple of days, as fast as that crock empties, that's as fast as it fills up. So it goes into my culvert, okay? But it's raised enough where water from the property to the south goes underneath that black, because it's like plastic tubing or whatever you want to call it. So it
Perforated
does
pipe.
flow through. It does flow through. So there's no blockage there.
Okay.
And to let you know this, when I'm out cleaning out that algae, then I take to her culvert and I cut all that grass low, and then I take my rake out and I rake out even her portion of the algae, so I can get the water to at least start flowing. But I can't go to the other side. It's not my problem. So
Alderman Nelson.
Do we have a time frame on? Will it still be this year yet? No, I'm just
Yeah.
asking if we could.
In all reality, I mean, and I'll speak for Kevin, you know, they spent the last week or 2 weeks working on St. Martin's, getting ready and breaking down.
Yeah, excellent job.
We have to get on Martin's, getting ready and breaking down.
Yeah, excellent job.
We have to get on our roads. We just got to get on our roads. We've been, I don't want to say neglecting them all year, but it's coming in the year, we just got to get stuff done. I know some folks don't like me here to say it, but we just need more manpower and need more budget to get things done. So we're getting to things when we can to get things done. So we're getting to things when we can. I appreciate his concern about his ditch. We do have a lot of other issues that we're trying to fight right now.
if
So
I didn't have algae, I wouldn't be here.
I
But that's the
appreciate
big problem.
So,
And those frogs are about 3 pounds a piece now.
If I rake it up, I'd probably my section.
Oh, I believe it. I've seen it.
and truly, I appreciate the concern. If I had to prioritize things, it's just not the highest priority right now.
When you're short staffed, so
Yeah.
you expect that.
Yes. Okay, we can go back to the traffic.
Okay.
Okay.
Glenn?
But before he starts, may I?
Yes.
I dropped off those devices. And if you want to, I'm just going to give this to the commissioners first. These units were not meant to be on a two-lane road. All right? When it was in front of the one farther to the north, almost halfway into the lane of traffic. And what that caused, all right, believe it or not, yes, cars are slowing down coming up to those devices because they had to go around them. And there was an incident where I let Chief Oliva know that, okay, and what happened one day, I was outside sitting on my stoop, and sure enough, car heading south went around it. This woman's coming north. She lost it, almost went completely into the ditch across the street. The other incident was cars going on the street. The other incident was cars going around those things. A bicyclist, a kid, probably 10, 11 years old, same thing. He went into the ditch. I went out and I ran out and I grabbed him up. I said, "You doing okay?" He says, "Yeah, no problem." But that's why they were taken away. I said, "Chief, that's why they were taken away." I said, "Chief, someone's going to get seriously hurt." I don't know what the count was for traffic heading north. And I know personally, I've seen where I have pulled up to my driveway, I'm doing 20, it's showing 20 miles an hour. That's what's going to happen because when down, that's not true speed. And the minute they were removed, guess what? 40, 45 miles an hour again. And I know the chief said that eventually, and I guess the city already marked with the yellow flag, where to get the kind like they've got in the Hills Corners. The post that goes in the ground, you're going to have a...
Thank you. Glenn, you want to continue?
So I was not aware that was what was put out there. I did ask for a traffic study, and the report's in your packet here. So if that's truly the case, that would explain why people go slower in Franklin than they
It
do.
would, when you see the,
In Franklin than they
it
do.
would, when you see the pictures.
Okay.
It's pretty obvious.
So I guess I would have to revisit with the police department and just have this discussion again. So I will tell you, Hell's Corners did not find them to be overly effective, just for what that's worth. You can see that when they have the speed signs worth, you can see that when they have the speed signs, the fastest speeds are still 75, 67. Back in 22, or early this year in 22. And then the 85th percentile was still 32 miles an hour, which is not horrible. 32 miles an hour, which is not horrible. Average speed was 28. So I guess we could throw out the Franklin, but having said that, when you look at the Hales Corners data, they don't slow people down.
Okay. Couple of questions, Glenn. Okay. This is a, can you, okay. This is a, can you draw your up, no, the other direction? Okay. So 116th Street
So
goes from Woods Road to, what's on the north there?
Belmar.
Belmar? And it goes into, and how far up into Hales Corner does it go?
well,
there?
it goes all the way to, what's the road there?
Forest Home?
Forest Home?
Or is that Green?
No, that's not,
Janesville?
Janesville, yes.
Okay. So my point being that generally speaking that this is, do people use this road to cut across, or is this local traffic? That's the question I'm trying to get to.
I can't say for certain. I would say it's fairly local traffic, because if you're coming from the Waukesha area direction, you would be up on Janesville, right?
Or on Woods.
Or on Woods.
That's
can't
why I'm
see-
asking the question.
I can't see that someone wanting to go to, say, Hales Corners Town Hall would come in on Woods and try to cut through.
Wouldn't make
It
sense.
doesn't make sense. And conversely, if you're coming from the Milwaukee direction, you've got this 12-point areas, or whatever they call this place, where you can go in Janesville, and I can't see that someone would come Janesville then down 116th to get to Woods. So
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm
okay.
just asking the question to put it out there.
I can't say for certain, but I think that's.
Are the road widths, is the road width 22 or is it 20 here?
I can't say for certain.
Okay.
Don't know.
Don't know. Okay. Okay.
I think it's 26.
So my guess is that you're, based on the data that you presented here and brought in here this time around, it tells me that, my guess is that you are going to say that would not be niche and would have been based on on the data that's provided in here. But I don't know that we have data that's appropriate because of the device used.
So if you throw out Franklin's data, I would suggest to you that Hales Corners has exactly what's being requested, and you see the maximum speeds are set through there regardless. And Hales Corners and I had a big discussion on, the propellers that we've been putting on top of speed limit signs, and as funny as it sounds, those have the same effect. It draws your attention to the speed limit. My opinion is people know that they're speeding, they just don't care. Thing, and I can't fix that other than, you put something in the middle like we did with the speed study, and unless you do something physically to slow them down.
Well,
A speed limit sign flashing or otherwise is not going to help.
to me, generally speaking, if we have issues with speed on roads, the most effective method is to put a policeman out there with his radar gun and take them and write some tickets if there are people who are going too fast. I do believe that that's true.
Studies have shown that is the most effective reason. So
And
people
that's what
don't
we
care
normally
until they
do
realize.
first try. And
people
that's what
don't
we
care
normally
until they
do
realize-
first try, is to put an officer out there and see that. And I see you're shaking your head no, or are you shaking your head yes?
Talking to Chief Oliva, you've read the articles in the paper. Just like the DPW is short-staffed.
They're short-staffed also, and
Police
that's part of the issue.
department is 24/7 on
And
116th
it's
Street
not
or
going to
any
happen,
street.
and it won't be, but what we can do is kind of based on I wouldn't even, I don't know if we can't, so this particular study that Hales Corner is from, and our data isn't very good. So I guess my thought process is if we can get if we can get some data that can tell us when to go out there and sit on that road, we can focus the enforcement to an appropriate time frame for, if it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if it's 7 o'clock in the morning, we've done that before. Rush hour times, I'm sure, is where it happens. So, my first inkling would be to request that, and that's because that's what we generally first do.
Majority of the time, like I told Chief Oliva, speeders, and they're not kids. That's the surprising part.
No, it's not.
They're adults.
Oh, yes.
And
It happens more.
4:30 in the afternoon. He even asked me, he says, well, Bob, do you think we could place an unmarked squad in your driveway or a motorcycle? I said, be my guest.
Okay.
Be my guest. It
We
never
don't,
happened.
this board will request officers to do that on occasion, or not, will request enforcement. We don't request, but we don't do it often, and the reason we don't is what you were just saying about it, the manpower that's available, but we haven't requested anybody to enforce anything since, I think, Putes Road about a year and a half ago. John, does that sound about, it's been a while. So, I mean, John, does that sound about, it's been a while. So, I mean, I think that's something we could. Yeah, we don't try to push it too much, but, I would be willing to put the board behind that if the board is willing to consider that.
Well, one thing though, may I suggest, if you do talk to Chief Oliva, and you are going to have squads, there, please make it unmarked, because last year they placed a squad out there, was marked. When someone's going to see a marked squad, what are they going to do? That brake is going on, that puts off the gas pedal.
Well, a lot of times they'll even go out there, and what they'll do is they'll put a
Puts off the gas pedal.
Well, a lot of times they'll even go out there, and what they'll do is they'll put we've had them do this in the past, where they'll put a bicycle out there with a radar gun with an officer 2 blocks down. They have methods to do this. If we're asking them to focus, that we can maybe get some help. If we're asking them to focus, that we can maybe get some help on.
Well, even a funny part is, I have a client who's a lieutenant at Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, and I've told him about this problem. They've got that out there. And he says, Bob, do you have an old hair dryer? I says, yeah, probably when I still had hair. He says, paint it black, cut off the cord, and sit down
I think it's a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not going to be sitting out there.
Not do that.
No, I'm not going to sit out there with that.
Whoever told you that was horrible advice.
Yep, no.
I'll say it on record. If I'm being heard loud and clear, don't ever do
No.
that.
No, I wouldn't.
So that would be considered. Glenn, what would you think at this point in time?
So I can put up one of the more out-of-the-way signs and see if it can affect, and we'll compare that to what Hales Corners did. But again, I would point out that what Hales Corners record, I'm not really sure what it's going to point out. As I tell everyone, it's most helpful if you can say there's a red Chevy pickup truck that drives by every day. But you're right, we're short-staffed, they're short-staffed, everybody's short-staffed, yada, yada, yada. But if you tell them when they can fish and when the fish will bite, that's when they'll go fishing.
Well, the chief even asked me, he said, would you be willing that if you saw somebody really speeding, would you be able to write down a license plate number and give it to us? And then he would have, I've got no problem with that. He said, then you have to show up in court. I got no problem with that. Because the case that I brought up at the last meeting, I can remember I'm sitting cutting my grass in my ditch, and I see this van coming off of Belmark, and she is just, shut off my lawnmower. I put my hand like this. You know what she did? She gave me the old finger. And she had 2 kids on her neck. 3 weeks later, I'm on Highway 100 by that Samori. The same van, same woman, 2 kids, she rear-ended a car, and I thought, man, justice does prevail.
It's bad to say that, but I understand your premise. So, from this board at this point in time, how do you want us to?
Ask the police if they can do one of the more, I don't want to say less obscure, because that's the whole idea. You want them to see it, but maybe not in the way where it's not a structural obstacle.
Okay, and then So I think what I will ask is a motion to table this until we get that data back, and then move forward with a request for enforcement at our next meeting.
Just in closing, my last one, when I did talk to the chief, when they removed those units, he said he's requested the DPW to install the one like they've got in Hales. He said he's requested the DPW to install the one like they've got in Hales Corners, where they bring out the piece of equipment and they punch the hole with the post. Okay, that's the yellow flag I've got on my lot line to my neighbor to the south. That's what it's for. And they marked it with yellow paint. So,
Well,
and they marked it with yellow paint. So,
well,
Yeah, I haven't heard that, but I'll ask about it.
yeah, okay.
but that's what he said he was requesting from the DPW, because they don't have that kind of equipment.
So the motion on the floor I would ask for is to table this until the October meeting, until we can get maybe some better data from the. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
So Commissioner Specht has made that motion, and Commissioner Woznicki Commissioner Specht has made that motion. Commissioner Woznicki has seconded that motion. All of those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Okay, that motion will pass. Idiot.
I had Digger's hotline come out and hotline your ditch, so I knew if there was anything on when we start.
Okay.
Because yellow flag.
So we're going to go ahead and move on then to, and then this will
Thank
be
you
back
very
on
much. I appreciate it.
on our agenda next month, okay,
Always Bob.
to go forward. Okay, the 2023 Local Street Improvement Program, which I know that Alderman over here is going to have his issues, but we have to present something. What I would like to say, starting before I turn this over to you, Glenn, I believe it was Ms. Specht last year made the comment that we should maybe work at getting some preventative maintenance on some of these lesser roads, and we kind of agreed. And that is brought up here. I know that I have spoken to the mayor, when I run into him in the town, and he said, put it on there and see what happens. So I appreciate that is put on here in terms of the maintenance, for this. The whole idea of that, of course, is if we can do some preventative maintenance early, maybe we can prolong some of the life of some of our roads longer term. So I appreciate that's done in this, and let's see what our presentation's like.
Tell you that we did do the various methods of chip seal this year. I can tell you that I have yet to get one phone call where somebody is thankful that we did that. We get a lot of complaints. It ranges from, I've got medical conditions I've got medical condition with my neck and I can't drive that road anymore, to it's too noisy, it's too yada, yada, yada. So I appreciate the concerns, but I actually think it looks nice. We had some issues this year with trying to get enough paint to do what we need. To do. It's like you can't hardly steal paint to stripe roads this year, but we're doing the best we can in that regard. So we haven't striped everything that we ought to. It'll look even better once it gets striped, but I personally think it looks good. I was at a conference, International Slurry Seal Association. In fact, the Federal Highway even has a grant we're trying to track down and make sure that they'll pay for flight and room and everything. But if not, I think I'd like to use my budget money next year to send them. But I talked to the gentleman at the booth. There's some things we can do to maybe make it quieter, make it smoother, use more sand instead of the more chips, if you will. So I'm getting it over my head. I'm going to let Tyler, who did the lion's share of putting this together, walk you through the presentation.
Memo, and it has kind of the breakdown of the general stuff, and just to touch on, so we did start the preventative maintenance stuff this year. So we did about 3.1, 3.2 miles. It was a combination. We did chip seal, which is the one we've gotten complaints about. We got a handful at the beginning, some unique ones. Primarily it was loose gravel, which after the first few weeks after sweeping, and Kevin's guys have done a great job sweeping when the contractor hasn't been able to. But yeah, like Glenn said, I think it turned out great. And I think it's just going to be a matter of time to see how long it lasts, and I think people will get used to it. And really, if you drive it, it's a little bit louder, but it's as smooth as the road used to be in general. And then the other roads we did but it's as smooth as the road used to be in general. And then the other roads we did were fog seals essentially, so there really was it just painted the road black. So we didn't really receive any complaints or positive feedback from anyone on that, but we assume that'll be a pretty low-key item anyways. So to jump into the memo, so as we've kind of touched on in the past, one of the major factors with our road program recently is that DPW and sewer and water, they just don't have the time and staff available to perform that they used to on our project. So we have to contract a lot of that out. So because of that, obviously, our costs go up. Additionally, whether it's because of the pandemic or other things, material prices have just shot up like nothing else over the last 2 years. So, and I'll get into that a little. So, in general, as a result of both of those things, we're spending more and more money and touching less and less road each year. So obviously that was part with the preventative maintenance to try and address that. And, we're going and addressing more roads, but obviously the preventative maintenance is really a Band-Aid fix. So every 2 years we go through and we rate the roads on the PACER system. There's a little bit of breakdown there, but essentially it's a 1 through 10 scale. A couple of Kevin's guys go out and put together the ratings. In one of the exhibits, I think it's exhibit C, it shows you the frequency of the conditions of the roads. So they were rated in 2021, so fall of last year. They were rated prior to that in 2019. The conditions haven't changed significantly in that time. They really changed The conditions haven't changed significantly in that time. They really changed really from 2017 to 2019 was when we saw a big drop off. But the biggest issue is that basically only a quarter of our roads are rated 7 or better, and a lot of those are roads that are just being handed over to us in new subdivisions. So it's not even roads that we're able to touch. So with the PACER program and our rating, the DOT has a program called Whistler that we can use to put together some of these charts, and we can input kind of our construction costs, and it'll spit out a generic, gives us some numbers, and some of the numbers are how much basically to remove your backlog of roads that need extensive work. So in the past, 2015 through 2020 or 2019, I should say, it stayed pretty consistent that dollar amount to remove the backlog was about $1 million. 4.6 this year, now it's $6 million, and that's, I would say, in large part because of the construction costs, but also because our roads are deteriorating more and more. So we put together the preliminary list that's shown on Exhibit A, and so for this list we went with, shown on Exhibit A, and so for this list we went with basically a budget of $2.6 million for the road program. So we obviously know we aren't going to get the $6 million a year. I'm sure it's unlikely we're going to get the 2.6, but we feel that 2.6 is the number that if we can put that money into the roads, we can continue to keep these things viable before they get out of control. The biggest issue with that lower amount of funding, that 1 million, is with that we're really at a true pace of, so road we paved this year, we're not getting back to it until 21, 22 until, and that thing will be dust by then. So I guess just some info on the construction costs. So in 2013, asphalt was $41.65 a ton. This year it was $76.30. So it went up 83% over those 10 years. Just in the last 2 years, it's gone up about 25-30%. Concrete, same thing. It's gone up almost 70% in that 10-year time frame. Basically 2014, 2015, 2016, 17, 18, 19, that was all right around $1 million. So, you know, we're seeing the construction costs go up. Our funding is staying the same. Our staff isn't able to do as much to save money. So the more stuff we contract out, the more we do each road. So there's a table that kind of shows what we're paying based on the contracts we have with our contractors. So in 2018, you know, we were paying about $271,000 to get a mile done of road. This past year, it was basically $500,000 to get a mile done of road. This past year, it was basically $500,000. So we didn't even get 2 miles done this year. About $90,000 was put towards the preventative maintenance, so we may have picked up a little bit there. Maybe that would have pushed us closer to 2 miles, but and so we may have picked up a little bit there. Maybe that would have pushed us closer to 2 miles, but yeah, just really, it's not an effective solution right now. So we did put together the preliminary estimate for $2.6 million. And it has kind of a section for the preventative maintenance, which that could vary. You know, we're kind of weighing different options if we want to continue doing chip seals, if we want to just try and do fog seals. But so that'll kind of vary once we get into more details on the program. It's actually it's like the 6th line down, so it's under 49th Street. So where that boulder line is, that's about, if we only got $1 million, that's the roads we would get this next year. So there's only about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments of road that we would get to. Let's see if there's anything else. One thing also I wanted to touch on, I guess. So 10 years ago in 2013, we had 166 miles that we owned and maintained. This past year it went up. Now we're at 178, and by the time this past year it went up. Now we're at 178, and by the time 2025 comes, we'll have at least one new subdivision. We'll have finished our new Hickory Street. We'll have another condo development. So we'll add another. We'll be up at about 180.6, 180.7. So we're going to be just adding and adding. And you know, the southwest portion of the city is largely undeveloped, and we're going to probably see more public roads if subdivisions go. And yeah, it's just, I guess from our perspective, the $1 million is not sustainable for us to be able to maintain roads, and we'd like to see it. I guess the gist of it is I guess we would recommend that the board recommends to Common Council to allocate $2.6 million for the 2023 local street improvement program.
So one thing Tyler didn't touch on was Hawthorne subdivision. It's what I call the area north of Rawson, east of the ballpark, west of Ballpark and east of 92nd Street. So, you know, that subdivision that we've discussed a few times in the past year. Those roads are all primarily 1s and 2s. We just had access. We have surveyed the area for, the thought was we don't want to repave it and then within 5 years tear it all up for utilities. So per Common Council's directions, we surveyed the entire neighborhood, basically said, would you like to have utilities anytime soon? Or do you want to just forego utilities for a long time and indefinite, we haven't really set an exact year, but, and get your roads done. With that, they would be assessed for utilities. So you can probably imagine how the survey came out. I think there's you can probably imagine how the survey came out. I think I don't have the exact numbers, 50-some houses that we sent surveys to. We got responses, I think, from 36-ish. Don't quote me on the numbers. And I think 3 of them were in favor of doing utilities. So we did ask for $400,000 for next year's budget to really just do the roads up there. And that's not addressed in this list here. So that would be an extra $400,000 that we would be spending on road, but it would be a special project, if you will.
Yeah.
Somewhat like what we did for Mayor's Drive this past year.
Okay. I've been on this board a long time. Have some funding that there was a state program that would come up, and every 6 to 7 years you would get some money built up. Are some of these programs still existing? Or are they gone? And you would have certain projects that you could use that money for, but you had to apply for them. Got the money, maybe you did not.
So the program is still there. The rules have changed.
Okay.
Federal highway. So those are funds that come through the local, what I call MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization. So basically the Milwaukee area and surrounding counties.
Mm-hmm.
So everything goes into a pot of money, and they're basically, Federal Highway said, Milwaukee area, you're a big enough area, you always have projects, we're going to give you X amount of $1 million a year. It's up to you guys to figure out how to split that up. Back in the day, it was somewhat understood that, based on your size and some other formula that they had, Franklin, you would get a project every 6-7 years. And,
Right.
And people could plan on that. About the time I started, so it's 7-8 years ago, Federal Highway said, you know what? That's not right. Every project needs to be evaluated based on need. Putes is a perfect project for that funding, except it has to compete with other streets in the area that have
Right.
higher traffic, have, how shall I say, different socioeconomic makeup than what Franklin has. And I just can't help these factors. And I'll be honest, I don't think I'm ever going to get those funds.
I just thought I would ask the question.
I need a smaller project. I need it for a busier road. I need it for, some other reason that I would say the word sexy enough to compete with the other projects that routinely get it. And so that's enough said.
Okay, I appreciate it. I was just curious because it's been a while since
Yeah.
I've seen it. Okay, I appreciate it. I was just curious because it's been a while since
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I've been told by everyone you could almost budget around getting your share of funding, but that's no longer the case.
Okay, because like I said, I remember, I think, we did a couple, I remember getting through a couple, 2 or 3 different projects over the years. That I've been on this board. So I was just curious because I haven't seen it.
And I go on the record and I say it every time I can, I believe the funding formula that the local MPO has is totally unfair. There's a lot of things I can't control.
Yeah.
Some roads get points. There's a lot of things I can't control.
Yeah.
Some roads get points for having bus service. We want bus service for our parks, and the county won't give it to us. And I get knocked off for that. It's just there's a lot of things that I can't control in the
Yeah.
rating.
Just was asking the question.
Sure.
Okay? Yeah.
In the
Just
rating.
was asking the question.
Sure.
Okay? Other questions from the board? Alderman.
So just for the budget part of it, so now we would go from that 2.6 up to 3 million if we added Hawthorne in. So it'd be 3 million, which would include the Hawthorne project for next year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Witt.
On that Hawthorne, if you redid the road or whatever you did, does that include, I know there's curb and gutter in some of the areas, is that?
I know we definitely talked about widening, where we can widen. Where bad curb and gutter would be replaced with new curb and gutter.
Yeah, it would be spot. I mean,
Spotting.
we're probably looking at 15 to 20% of it, I would guess.
My question, I didn't hear you before. Would you say the neighbors did not want sewer and water? Hear you before. Would you say the neighbors did not want sewer and water?
I believe the responses were 3 were in favor of sewer and water, and all the rest were against it. So I need to, I don't think I'll get ready for this next council action, but it'll be the meeting following.
Okay. Okay, generally speaking, in the past 3 years, what we have done is approved the presented Exhibit A and moved that forward to who's the
Budget committee.
The budget manager. I can't think who that person is right now.
So Denise Gilbert is the finance officer, and there's the Peggy Steno is the director of administration.
But essentially to the budget management, city budget management.
Correct.
And deal with the funding, obviously. So I guess I would be looking for a motion. I mean, wait. First off, if everybody is, if this board is on with the presented data of Exhibit A, I would, no, before I get to that, I do have another question. Let me ask. Okay, just go on, man, I apologize. I'm having lots of troubles today. On the $1 million line. So if you go to council, okay, and say this is a $2.6 million project or $2.6 million request. Okay, if they come up with 1.8 million as a budget for roadways, what does this board want to make a recommendation as to what comes from below from the maintenance project and what comes from above?
Could I suggest to you that let's wait for the budget process to happen? Once we're given a number? Then we would, because we always come back to you and talk about what we plan to do that coming year.
Yes. The reason I asked the question is because one of the things that we implemented about 7-8 years to this board early, it used to be that this would come to us in like February after the budget was complete, and then that has worked out well. And Alderman, you can tell me this, because then your alderman knew kind of where that line was and where it was going to, where have an idea of what's above the line and what's below the line being included. Does that create an issue from the point of view of the alderman?
Well, I'll speak first. I know Glenn wanted to add
Sir?
something to this.
You're not on.
No, he is.
I hit my button, Commissioner. Anyway, so short answer is yes, it does matter. It does come into play because there is a little bit of jockeying for your district, because we do get a lot of complaints since there's been that redistricting, and now I have this. We do get a lot of complaints since there's been that redistricting, and now I have this Hawthorne area, and it's kind of a big deal. So I would definitely like to basically defer back to the city engineer as far as the roads and what we feel as a city, that part of it is in the most need, regardless of area. And be consistent, though, that this is the way we're going to do things. And now Mayor's Drive was a 3 or 4 year wait, but it's fantastic. We're just so it's like we all have these little pockets that we are hoping that get improved, but that was a big one. But yeah, with the costs, like Tyler is mentioning, that's a big deal. I mean, that's a kick. We're going to ask for $3 million. That's including the Hawthorne, 2.6 plus the 400. So now you're at $3 million, and now we're scratching and wondering where we're going to do this, because none of us want to raise anyone's taxes, but yet we want to provide exceptional services. And roads are a big deal. It's wonderful since it's been taken over. from the county. So I'm hoping I'm not, bloviating too much, but I think that's kind of how it looks, is like we would get that amount, we kick it back to Glenn. Glenn says, oh, these are the top 10 worst in the city, almost to powder, as I heard earlier, and then we kind of act from there.
Commissioner Witt.
Just as an example, referring to, kind of relates to what you just said. 76, Ross Avenue was repaved about 10 years ago or so, from 76th Street all the way to 27th. Or whatever it's been.
Yeah,
If you go to 76 or Ross and that intersection,
yeah.
if you go to 76 or Ross and that intersection's falling apart, and it's a concrete road. If you go down the road slow enough, and I grant you there's a lot of trucks, this and that, but the road is literally getting worn out, and it's a 9-inch concrete road, okay? My point is, I do roads for a living, but anyways, I personally know that, we all know that taxes are gonna go up if you go to $3 million. But me personally, it's gonna have to come to a point where you're going to have to spend the $3 million and fix everything.
Yeah.
And then you can start 26th Street from Ross Avenue going south. That's a concrete road, it's paved by Vinton. And if you go slow enough, you can see the roads, the joints are cracking apart. And I'm sure you see it. The road's falling apart. And that hasn't got nearly as much truck traffic as Rawson Avenue.
Both of which are county.
Both of which are.
But it
Now,
turned into a county
I
road.
will say this, I do remember that 76th Street, some portion of it was actually paid for by the city, even though it was a county project to add, was it left-hand turns that were added that were paid for by the city? I can't remember the exact, but
I
something.
know we paid for.
By the city?
know-
I can't remember the exact, but
I
something.
know we paid for sidewalks and lights, but I don't know about.
Yeah, sidewalks, maybe that was what it was. Commissioner Specht.
Thank you. Quick question in regards to the seal coating. You're recommending some roads that are as 10s. Based on our conversation last year, I thought you were trying to definitely as 10s. Based on our conversation last year, I thought you were trying to definitely hit like the 8s and 7s. I was a little surprised that you're making recommendations for seal coating of 10s. Can I get some explanation on why you're proposing that?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, those last 5, I don't know that
Those are fog seals, right?
that were, so some of these 10s were 10s in 2021, but they were done in most of them, so 37, 36, Marquette, Missouri, 68, those were done in 2020 with the Ross and Holmes project, so I think the goal there is it's one area to try and to preserve it as best as we can.
So if I may ask, so the idea there is to kind of have a longer-term prospect to see if we seal coat it now, what that does for our longer-term prospects? Is that your argument?
More or less, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we'd have one big
So
neighborhood.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
To
I'm
try,
saying-
more or less, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we'd have one big
So
neighborhood.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
To
I'm
try
saying-
it out in.
I'm trying to restate what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I explained to people, there's really 2 kinds of coatings that we did this year and that we plan to continue. One is we call fog sealing. So basically, you take almost a brand new road and you basically spray this film on top, a new road, and you basically spray this film on top of it. And what that does is that keeps the UV from really breaking it down, drying out the surface. But once it starts deteriorating past that, that's when we do the slurry seal kind of scrub seal or other issues that we looked at in Oak Creek. So basically then you're surface to the road as a wearing surface. So that's the 2 differences between why you may see some 10s versus the 6s or 7s.
But also I'm hearing to say that these ratings are 2 years old. You said 2020?
That's when those streets were paved from fall of about a year, just under a year ago. Yeah. And these are just grouped together. It's one neighborhood. We probably could have selected 8s and 9s to do this with as well, but if you looked at, it's hard to see on this attached map, Exhibit C, I think, or D, the Whistler map. Mm-hmm. So the issue with putting together this program is years and years ago, and not to say that there was reasoning for it, I'm sure, but there's stretches where there's 500 feet of road here that was redone, and then half a mile here that wasn't, and then another 500. So trying to piece these together logistically so that the contractors can come in and not have to mobilize twice, not have to charge us for that, really to make the most efficient use of the cost is part of that reason. So
Yeah.
we could have probably piecemealed some 8s and 9s and that are scattered all throughout the city, but it was really to try and keep it.
Yeah, that's
I
one of the
understand that. It just, I'm kind of surprised that the section of Putes that was just barely finished,
Yep.
was just barely finished,
Yep.
is now coming back and you're trying to seal coat it.
Okay, so I guess what we're looking for then is a motion from the board to, present Exhibit A as, with our approval for recommendation for the budgetary and council action.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Porter.
Just how much money are you looking at?
Well,
I mean, the both of them, the two,
the 2.6.
Okay.
And we'll allow the budgetary and council to work out the budget in terms of that. And and according to what, we talked about here, with Hawthorne, it's 300, okay, the 3 mil. So they might come back and say, okay, we can do 2 million with Hawthorne. So then you'd have to come back to here and pull what we can do off the top and bottom of this to meet our 1.6. That would be the two.
is that kind of like juggling around, so to speak?
Yeah, and that's where the engineering department and Kevin will come back and redo that.
But like I say, ultimately, all the figures show you what it is,
Yeah, exactly. And here's the real trick on all of this, in my opinion, is they're going to come back and next and re-rate all the roads here in 2023, I believe, correct? And here in 2023, I believe, correct? And you're going to see that some of these roads, okay, are gone because they've been redone now and whatever, but you're going to see that you've got maybe 10s, and some of those 10s might now be 8s, and you might have some 8s that maintain their 8s. You might have 6s that went down to 3. You know what I'm saying? They maintain their 8s. You might have 6s that went down to 3. You know what I'm saying? Things, the list in the priority list changes every time you do a Paisley listing, because the roadways deteriorate at different rates.
And see, the problem is now, there's a concrete shortage.
Yeah.
Our cement shortage, let's call it. Like Ozinga, they raise their price $30 a yard. That's gonna affect every upcoming project.
Yes, it does.
Just in the dollar bills, the labor isn't going anywhere, but asphalt's going up too. And it's gonna affect the price of every project there is. Not phenomenal, let's say, but that has nothing to do with Franklin, but I'm just saying the cost is going up just because of shortages.
And I will remind the board that it's not uncommon for us, once we open bids, to have to shuffle the list again, because, bids
Yeah.
come in too high or they come in lower, so
You don't know where things always come in, so we'll have to, that gets worked through.
Right.
So, okay. So essentially, the motion is to recommend Exhibit A of the 2023 local road improvement program, local road improvement program to city budget and to the council for consideration for the 2023 budget. Any other, and Commissioner Witt has made that motion, and that was seconded by Commissioner Commissioner Porter.
Yes.
All of those in favor of that, if there's no other questions, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Not hearing any negatives, we will, that will pass, and we'll move on to, it would be October 11th, thank you, October 11th, and it is 7:10. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second? By Commissioner Speck, seconded by Commissioner Porter. All of those in favor, aye.